You got your sound working yet, Shannon?
I think so. Can you hear me?
Can you hear her, Lee?
Mayor Foxton, can you hear me?
Maybe it's me. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
It was me. Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome. We should be good to be able to drive in.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting on Monday, it's February 7th. It is due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Region Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds. Township Council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public have been provided with the following methods of which to watch or participate in this open meeting electronically. First off, you can watch the live stream by accessing the meeting on the Township's YouTube page. Second, members of the public interested in speaking to any item were able to submit the request in writing to the Clerk's Division. A link and telephone number has been provided to those who register before the registration deadline. Thirdly, members of the public interested in commenting on a particular item were invited to submit written comments to the Clerk's Division that were provided to the Mayor and Council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. I'd now officially like to call this meeting to order, please, and can I have approval of the agenda?
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Osner, that Council adopt the February 7th, 2022 Committee of the Whole agenda as presented with the following addendums. 1, add closed session item 12.1, report number CAO-03-2022, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection I, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection K. And 2, add closed session item 12.2, report number CAO-04-2022, QP union negotiations, labor relations, or employee negotiations, Municipal Act Section 239, subsection 2, subsection D. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
Now we will do the Indigenous Territory Acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people within whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples of Canada. We will now pause for a moment of silence as we reflect on what has happened, what is happening, and how we can grow and how we can all be better. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn and sit as Committee of the Whole, please.
So moved by Councillor Osner and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that Council adjourn to sit as Committee of the Whole. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Osner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
We are now at the finance function. I'd like to ask any members of council if they would like to speak on any of the finance reports. Councillor Gillespie? You're muted.
Sorry, 6.1.
Which one? 6.1?
6.1, yes.
Okay. Anyone else? I see no one else, so we can pass the rest of them in their entirety.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Ossner that Committee of the Whole recommend the following items be. Oh, Mayor Foxton, you have a hand.
Oh, I apologize. CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, could we defer a decision on 6.2 momentarily? There may be outcomes related to report 6.1, Fin Report 5, that may influence the consideration of the 22 budget, which is item 6.2, Fin Report 6.
So why don't we go ahead with Councillor Gillespie's comments first, and then we either pass them all in their entirety or make the necessary changes.
I believe Mr. Deutschman has also registered previously through the clerk's office to speak to agenda item 6.1, Fin Report 05-2022, in addition to Councillor Gillespie.
Okay, so we'll start with Councillor Gillespie, and then we'll go to Councillor Rob Deutschman. Councillor Gillespie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, this whole thing has really been wearing on me. Every budget thing that comes up, we seem to, in the wards 3 and 4, we seem to be getting the short end of the stick. Now we're paying 0.9% more on our taxes than the urban area, which it's for something that we're not getting at all. So it just really has bothered me. So this is why we need to really get this regional government review out, because perhaps it might say that we've had lots of discussions on the fire department. Maybe the fire department should all be under one, and then wards 3 and 4 are not getting what the people in Air think is better service than they are, which is not good for the Air Fire Department. It's not our problem that we are all in North Dumfries and the fire department is in Air. I see it's not our problem that that's gone on. So it's a right that we have fire services. And I say, maybe this report would say the fire department should all be under one. And maybe the report would say that North Dumfries and Cambridge should be all under one. Honestly, Ward 4 is better suited for Cambridge, I think, because we are out here. And I say we're kind of like the orphan of North Dumfries, I feel. So it's just every budget this comes up, and it's just really bothers me. So that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Okay, and if I may, but we're not talking amalgamation here. We have to deal with the budget of the township. So if we could sort of just stay on task. I understand what you're saying. So either you're saying that we amalgamate fire services, or I'm not sure.
Well, I just think that, this regional government's review might have said something that would be very beneficial for us all. There's only so many taxpayers. We're all taxpayers. And pretty soon we're not going to be able to afford all this government that we have. So these issues.
So that's an amalgamation issue. That's an amalgamation issue, not really a budget issue.
No, I know, but I would just like to make that statement at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Rollman, and then I'll go to Rob Deutschman because it's council. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to respond to Councillor Gillespie's concerns. What we're looking at right now is not discussion about fire services. That's a separate issue, I think, that we talked about previously, and staff will prepare a report for that. What we're talking about right now is what's fair in terms of the SAR allotment for Air versus township. So if we look at a 70-30 split as proposed by staff, what we're saying is 70% of the sidewalks are used mainly for the benefit of the residents of Air. That's the suggestion. And the 30% are sidewalks that are used in common for everyone, for the schools, for the library, for township buildings. So that's what we're talking about. And I think it's fair, the proposal from staff, the 70-30 split, that shows that the residents of Air are prepared, as you said, Madam Mayor, to pay for their share. And the 30% is rightfully used in common with all residents of the township and all guests and visitors. So I think this is a fair way to go.
Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to build on Councillor Rolleman's statements, I personally don't feel we're out to go after getting more from wards 3 and 4, or any of the wards. I do look at this as a township, and it's unfortunate you feel like Ward 4 is an orphan, because I would have hoped that we worked hard in our first 4 years of council to change that attitude and to help Councillor Ritchie at that time to bring services into Ward 4, and we stood behind it 100%. We asked for a staff report on the split and how it breaks down. Staff gave us a report that gave us a split of 70-30. So I could use the absolute opposite argument, saying that, you know, the people's the residents of Ward 1 and 2 have been footing the bill for a long time, and now it's finally, we have a report that specifies it's a split of 70-30. So I don't feel that we're out to get anything, trying to get money from other wards to support us. And I'd be extremely careful how you start throwing the word amalgamation around, because if you want to be part of Cambridge, your taxpayers are going to go ballistic when you see what you're going to be paying for taxes.
Yes, Councillor Austin, you're absolutely correct. The difference is quite phenomenal. Not just that, when the amalgamation study was done, it said that North Dumfries taxes would go up 36%. And because of our size, we would not be allowed any representation. And all of our business would have to be done at downtown Kitchener. But that's a whole nother issue. Mr. Deutschman, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, Chief Schatz, CAO McNeely, staff, and the viewing public. I just wanted to speak to the special area rate discussion, but just before that, I just wanted to say historically, Ward 4 was part of Flamborough, and Flamborough did not want to amalgamate with Hamilton. Cambridge did not want that area, and North Dumfries Township stepped up and took it on. So, and if you want an example of a benefit, the fiber optic installation that council did in the last term is a great example of how the townships benefited Ward 4, and I thought that was a brilliant step by all of you. Now, during my time on council, I first learned about this concept called the special area rate. I'm still not sure when it started, but until 2010, I was paying for it as a taxpayer and never knew about it. At the time, there were a number of services and some infrastructure that was included: crossing guards, snow clearing, but it also included sidewalks built in air at the time. After thinking about it, I didn't think that it was fair to include infrastructure like sidewalks. Then you'd be looking at other items like roads, and it would start to get too complicated. At the time, council agreed to remove sidewalks built in air from the special area rate. I did think that if there were services that air was receiving, then it was fair to pay for those services through special area rating. Special area rating is not uncommon. The region used it for the ION. The region even used it historically when they amalgamated the Cambridge and Kitchener transit systems for a period of time. During my time in office and my time as a resident of Ayr, I have never had a discussion with anyone or heard any comment from anyone in Ayr that was opposed to paying the special area rate to cover the cost of sidewalk clearing. I do congratulate council for looking into the sidewalk infrastructure to determine which is attributable to the general levy and which to assign to the special area rate. That had never occurred to me, but it seems eminently fair to split out the cost of sidewalk clearing on that basis. Ultimately, residents have to bear some responsibility for the clearing of sidewalks attached to their property. We accept that as our duty to the community in which we live, as a duty to our fellow neighbors to clear the sidewalks. That can be done by actually clearing your sidewalk yourself, or you pay someone to clear it for you. In this case, the special area rate is like paying someone to do it for you. Now, I appreciate that cost is shared by everyone in the village. I don't have a sidewalk that I'm responsible for, and I do not resent in any way that part of my taxes are used to clear my neighbor's sidewalk. After watching what happens in other communities after a snowfall, I appreciate that our sidewalks are cleared quickly, and this makes our community a more safe and accessible place to walk. I understand also there's a cost savings for liability insurance premiums as well, and that's a benefit for the whole township, and that's excellent. Sidewalks are owned by the township. The sidewalk is ultimately the township's responsibility, and the township is liable for injuries that occur through slip and fall accidents due to snow and ice. The township cannot pass a bylaw that tells residents that they use sidewalks at their own risk. So you can pass a bylaw forcing property owners to clear their abutting sidewalks within a certain period of time, or just keep doing what we've been doing for many years with no complaints, but with this fair adjustment between the general levy and the special area rate. It seems to me that the current system creates more accessible and safer sidewalks and air, and those are benefits as a resident of air worth paying for. And I would support the 70-30 allocation. Thank you very much for the time this evening. All the best to everyone.
Thank you, thank you, Rob. Would you, Councilor Gillespie, do you want a separate vote for each item, or do you want to do the votes together?
You can do them together.
Okay, thank you. And there are no other items under finance that wish to be discussed? Seeing none, Ms. Sage, you do not have to read the 2 pages.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Ossner that Committee of the Whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff reports listed in the finance function area. 6.1 report number FIN-05-2022, the 2022 air special area rate as presented. And 6.2 report number FIN-06-2022, the 2022 budget, capital and operating, and that's as presented. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Oh. Sorry, and I just realized it. 6.3.
Yes, I was
Ashley,
looking at that, yes.
there is a 6.3 report FIN 0722. It has to be embodied into the resolution. So if I could ask, please start again, include the 3 reports in the finance function area, and then ask for the vote, please.
Yes, my apologies on that. Moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Ossner that Committee of the Whole recommend the following items be approved as presented as outlined in the staff reports listed in the finance function area. 6.1 report number FIN-05-2022, the 2022 air special area rate as presented. Item 6.2 report number FIN-06-2022, the 2022 budget, capital and operating as presented. And 6.3 report number FIN-07-2022, this project cost adjustment, the 2021 Wilson Newell storm drain as presented. Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
CEO McNeely, is that a legacy hand? Thank you. Under developmental services, there isn't anything. We'll now go to community services function area. Are there any members of council wish to make any comments? Councillor Ossner.
Thank you. Just one quick comment on the food vendor bylaw review. So I know at the end of the bylaw, the proposed bylaw, it talks about.
We, I believe, are on 8.1, which is the tennis courts.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were at 9.1. Sorry, my
No,
apologies.
That's okay. We'll come back to that. That's quite all
Yes,
right.
I've got nothing to say then.
Okay, thank you. Can I have the motion, please, Ms. Sage?
Moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Rollman that Committee of the Whole recommend the following item be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report listed in the community services function area. 8.1 report number REC-01-2022, the 3-lit tennis court facility in Schmidt Park, and that's as presented. Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to the government's protective services function area. Councillor Ossner, you want to speak on 9.1, is that correct?
Yes, please.
Councillor Rollman?
On 9.1 as well, please.
Okay, Councillor McCreary?
9.1.
And also myself, 9.1. All right, so do we want to go ahead and pass 9.2?
So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that Committee of the Whole recommend the following item be approved as presented as outlined in the staff report listed in the Governance and Protective Services function area. Item 9.2, report number CLK-04-2022, suspend the rules of the procedural bylaw to amend the February 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting start time, and that's as presented. Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. Now we'll go back to 9.1. I believe I have Councillor Ossner first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one quick question in regards to Schedule C to the bylaw when it says the designated locations of townships. So it says Victoria Park, 1 food truck, Piper's Glen 1, Centennial 1, Schmidt Park 2, etc. What happens if, let's say in Branston or Clyde Park, they want to have a food vendor day where they have several food trucks come out and have an event, or if we want to have something like, let's say the fireworks are going again up at Schmidt Park and we want to have maybe four food trucks, is this bylaw going to strap us down to 1 or 2 food trucks?
CEO McNeely? Or who's got that? Oh,
Mayor, if you
Ms.
have,
Brooks.
Ms. Brooks and then perhaps Ashley speak to
Okay.
this.
Go ahead, Christina.
There is a section in the bylaw that talks about special events of the township. So this is the rotational basis where an individual food truck operator decides to want to set up in our parks. That's where we would have that one designation. What you're speaking to is more of a special event or something that is hosted by the township, and that follows under a different provision of the bylaw.
So just to respond, if I may. So if we have any kind of event that is, let's say, privately run at Schmidt Park, they just have to simply apply and to have more than the 2 food trucks there?
So the provision of the bylaw is that if we were holding a special event, which is defined as a community, social, or cultural group celebration that is open to the public, including but not limited to ceremony, street party, beer garden, festival, carnival, etc., then that would have to be an approved township special event to be able to operate.
CEO McNeely?
Madam Mayor, can I just add to what Ms. Brooks has indicated, because this may assist Councillor Ossner. This also would be done in parallel with us actually closing the park to allow for that large scale event. So, excuse me, when we have, let's say, the fireworks as an example, we take over the park. Council has designated that as a special event, and the food truck component would be done in concert with allowing for that event to occur on a specified day and effectively close out the park exclusive to that singular use.
Okay, and just finally to end it then, so as an example, if somebody wants to run a actual food truck event at either Victoria Park or Schmidt Park or any park, Branston, Clyde, that would be considered a special event and that would be allowed.
CEO McNeely?
With council granting the permission to effectively curb other park amenity or park usage. So council would actually have to grant the overall permit to allow that activity to occur in the park because it would be disruptive for other park amenity activities that the public itself might gravitate to the park for.
So then the food truck bylaw is strictly for shutting the park down, not in coordination with certain things that are happening in the park?
At that larger scale that you just spoke
Yes.
of,
Yes.
they're run in parallel. Because right now our current parks bylaw would not allow a large scale commercial activity or a special event without a permit being issued, because it does affect portions of the park. So they would be viewed in concert, and a permit would be issued to allow for the special event and to accommodate more than, I'll call it the benchmark of food vendors.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 4 of the report, we go through the different classes of food trucks. My only question is, there are some situations where you have, let's call it a hot dog stand or something of that nature, that's not necessarily motorized. It may not even be a cart. It may be a temporary wooden structure that's set up just for the summer, or an ice cream booth or something. Is that included in the bylaw? And looking at the food truck license number 1, it says it has to be a motorized or stationary, so that may or may not qualify. Then we get into the next section, which is the refreshment vehicles. One of those, I assume, is like a mobile canteen type truck that goes from work site to work site, and the other one is the bicycle ice cream cart type scenario. But there has been in the past requests for a temporary type, a French fry hut or a hot dog stand or something of that nature, located on private property, in a business park typically. I'm wondering, is that allowed for in the food truck bylaw, or are we going to have to deal with that as it comes up as well, or should we just deal with it right now and get it over with?
Okay, we'll start with Christina Brox, then we'll go to Ashley Sage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor Rowland. It is intended to be captured within this bylaw, and it really can be looked at are they cooking and preparing food on site, or are they selling prepackaged offerings? And that's where that stationary food truck, if they have a kitchen facility and are cooking French fries and subject to those, it would be under that classification. Whereas if they are just selling prepackaged ice cream sandwiches out of a stationary, then it would be more in that refreshment vehicle. So the bylaw is intended to capture both of those items, but if you don't feel it is clear, we can add in additional language.
Ms. Sage, did you have anything further to say?
No, Christina covered everything I was going to say.
Thank you. Councillor Roman.
Just as a response, thank you, Madam Mayor. The only word I'm questioning is the word motorized. So I understand the difference between prepared food and packaged food and cooking on site. The key word here on page 4 here is the food truck must be a motorized vehicle. So what I'm questioning is, what if it's not a motorized vehicle? How are we going to handle that? Because that's going to come up. It may be a different term of council, but there will be somebody coming forward saying, I want to set up a hot dog stand and it's not motorized. So I'm just wondering, how are we going to handle that?
Ms. Brox.
If I may, so the definition in the bylaw at 1.6 food truck was designed to be a stationary or motorized vehicle. However, as I said, if you feel that's not clear, we can update the language to be more clear on that distinction.
But it does say stationary, correct? Because I thought I read that too, so I thought it was already included. Is that satisfactory, Councillor Roman? Or what would you suggest as better wording?
I thought the wording just basically should be the food truck must be a motorized vehicle. That's mobile stationary, that's fine, but then we should also add a clause that says something that's going to address a temporary structure. Some sort of temporary seasonal structure. That's what I'm thinking.
CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, to provide clarity and to provide, and unfortunately, another approvals that would go in. So if this was stationary and put in as a temporary structure, if it exceeds 108 square feet in area, it triggers a building permit, even if it's only temporary in nature, because it's deemed to be a structure that has walls or a roof or a combination thereof, and it exceeds 108 square feet, automatically a building permit is triggered, which is independent of our food bylaw that we're talking about right now, but it does trigger the building permit. So to provide clarity and to make sure everyone understands, we'll call it the link with another piece of legislation, in the definition that Ms. Brox drew our attention to, do you wish it to actually talk about the 108 square feet as a stationary structure, even if temporary in nature, which would also require a building permit? Because then it clearly differentiates between something that's motorized and will come and go versus something that's assembled in place and would be occupied for certain hours of a day or certain periods of a week for the serving of food.
Councilor Roman.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the square footage. I think a lot of these temporary stands are quite small. You know, the ones I'm thinking of along the sides of industrial parks. You predominantly see them in Mississauga and around Toronto, where you have basically a hot dog cart. But what they've done is they've added plywood and various other things to make it more permanent. So they're not removing it every night. So it wouldn't be very big, but it would be left overnight and it would be sitting there for, let's say, the entire season, the entire summer season. So that's kind of what I'm concerned about, that type of booth.
And are you stating that you would like to see that put into the bylaw and allow that?
Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to make this amendment now, or do you want staff to take it back away? CEO McNeely, what would you suggest?
So, Madam Mayor, if this is something that council would like to be framed, remember, this is a draft document for discussion. So if it's council's intent to allow for temporary structures as outlined by Councillor Rollman, staff would suggest that we actually incorporate it into the draft. I mean, we don't have to work on the minutia language today, but we understand your intent. We would incorporate that into the draft document, both by function and definition. And then that goes out as part of the community consultation. And we would report back, obviously, later in March, coming out with whatever comments we receive from the broader public on the draft document. And at that point in time, council can do a couple of things. Be satisfied that we've truly captured the definition as we just discussed, and have some feedback from both operators and or members of the public on that type of element being incorporated into the food refreshment bylaw going forward.
Thank you, CEO McNeely. Councilor McCreary, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. I'm looking at schedules B and C in the draft bylaw, and there is a list of parks within the township where a food truck will be permitted to operate. And I noticed that the park in Browns is not listed there. Was there a reason why it was not listed, or is that an oversight?
I see a few shocked faces. It might be an oversight. Ms. Winters.
Through you, Mayor Foxton, to Councilor McCreary, I think it was strictly an oversight. And we just had a list and I think we've missed it. So we'll certainly capture that on the next round.
I think Browns would very much like to be included on the list. Thank you.
Councilor Osner, did you still have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, most of it was pretty much answered with coming back to like an amendment to this bylaw. But the only question I had was that for temporary structures, I mean, like I understood this to be a food truck bylaw. But if they're going to add a separate clause to this bylaw to allow for temporary structures, that's fine. It's just I understood that we requested a mobile food truck bylaw, and I just wondered if as Councillor Moore said, the temporary building, I wonder if that would fit in somewhere else. But if there's another clause going to be added to this, then I guess that would work too.
Okay, no more questions from the councillors. It's my turn. So does this basically mean that food trucks can come in anywhere in our village and a number of them, and we don't care how many come in as long as they pay their fee? That's how I read it. Didn't seem to me any controls. So let's say that Hitch Coffee decides she wants to put 6 food trucks in that lot.
So, Madam Mayor, there's the overriding principle of a separation distance from a bricks and mortar restaurant. Excuse me. So that is one restriction. It's in proximity to an established restaurant facility. But after that, it is the market that will dictate how many food vendors will be supported by members of the public. There's been certain criteria put in place in terms of if it's sited on private property, what kinds of properties would be eligible, and obviously the health unit permissions. And if it's on public property, being the township land holdings, we've identified how many, as well as a venue within the park site where it could be supported by clientele within the park setting, but wouldn't interfere with park activity that's occurring in the background. But generally speaking, yes, on a given night, in theory, you could have at 6 different locations across North Dumfries, mobile food vendors operating, provided they meet the criterion that's listed in various components of this bylaw.
Or in one location.
Well,
as long
yes,
as it's so far away from the restaurant, like Hitch Coffee's far enough away.
So it would not be in the case of the township land holdings, because we've actually specified how many could be accommodated within a park setting, unless if we go back to the earlier conversation with Councillor Ostner, it was a special event, and we were actually, for lack of a better term, creating the critical mass to support multiple food vendors. But generically, in North Dumfries, if this was to be adopted as presented, yes, we could entertain multiple food vendors at locations across North Dumfries.
Would they have to be at a location? Not necessarily, they couldn't park on the side of the road. Could they? Ms. Sage, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I just wanted to speak further to what Andrew was just saying. There is a clause that's been included under 3.1 in the bylaw that does give the discretion to limit the number of food truck licenses. And that's just, again, we don't know how many people are going to apply. And if something came up that required us to limit the number of licenses, then we do have that provision in the bylaw that would allow that just in case.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, as your comment about parking on the side of roads, at no point in time does this exempt them from the provisions of the traffic and parking bylaw. So for sake of argument, if there was a no parking area, no, you could not put a food truck in that location. If there's a time limit, let's just say the 2-hour parking area, you cannot exceed the 2 hours. You can also not take over more than one parking stall. So your vehicle and its operation would have to occur within the painted line of the parking stall, if I'm looking at a downtown location. So all those other obligations under the traffic and parking bylaw would continue to apply if someone was to bring a mobile vendor and temporarily stage it in a parking area in the downtown.
Councilor Williman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a little further on what the CEO was referring to with regards to the roads and traffic. What about the traditional ice cream truck that we all think of as it heads down through the neighborhoods with the bells ringing and the children running out of their houses to stop and grab an ice cream cone or whatever. Will that sort of truck be allowed? Are they allowed to get a license and roam the streets and roam the parks serving, freezies or whatever?
Christina, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the provisions of the bylaw, there are provisions for some of those vehicles to be in the residential neighborhoods, but there is very strict limits on how long they could stop at any given location. There's also provisions regarding noise, and you can't blare loudspeakers through the neighborhoods and other things subject to our noise bylaw provisions. So that has been accounted for in the schedules to the bylaw, depending on the class of vehicle that we are discussing.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, councillors? So as the motion, I believe, should read, Ms. Sage, it should basically say report number CLK-03-2022 be received for the purposes of discussion and staff to bring back a revised bylaw to council. Would that be correct?
That is correct. Yes, the bylaw, the draft motion does state that a report will come back at the March 14th, 2022 council meeting for consideration.
Well, but this motion states that the staff will post the draft bylaw to the license regulator, but we're not going to do that yet, right? We're not there yet. You have to do the revisions first. Is that correct?
Yes, I will make sure that those revisions are accounted
Madam
for.
Mayor, if I could clarify, council has provided some additional content you wish added to the draft bylaw. We will incorporate that. The intent is to post it on the website. And
Okay,
we'll return on later in March with any comments we receive from members of the public.
Okay, so this motion is still valid then? Because it doesn't talk, okay, that report.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the bylaw with the tweaks we talked about.
Okay, with the discussion items, let's add that in there with the discussion items. Staff proposed the draft bylaw to license, regulate, govern mobile food vendors on the township's websites, including discussion items of council.
Okay, now I've made that amendment then.
Councillor Bowman. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just a sort of an observation. In other council meetings I watched online, when they're revising their motions, the clerk will quite often share her screen, and then all of council can actually see the motion and see how it's being revised. Do we have the ability to do something like that? Because I think that would be really helpful if rather than just trying to read it, if she could put it on her share screen, then we could all look at it and view it, make sure the wording is being revised correctly.
Do you know how to do that, Ms. Sage, or would that be something Cynthia could assist you with?
Yes, I could share my screen. I do read the motion as well out loud, so that way you'll know exactly what it is that you're voting on, if that's sufficient as well.
Yeah, we don't read the motion at regional council. We view it on screen and then with the addition or with the changes in it.
If council wishes, I can have Cynthia, I can send it to her and have her share her screen with it. That is sufficient.
Please.
Okay.
Councilor Roman, can we have staff work on this? And oh, we got it. So we want to put that staff post the amended by council amended a bylaw. That's it. That meant post the amended draft bylaw. Perfect.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor McCreary, that report CLK-03-2022 be received for the purposes of discussion, and that staff post the draft amended bylaw to license, regulate, and govern mobile food vendors on the township website, including discussion items from council, and seek input from members of the public, and that staff return with a follow-up report and bylaw with any necessary revisions arising from the public consultation phase for the consideration of council at the March 14th, 2022 meeting. And that as part of the consultation phase and the recommended amendments to the fees and charges bylaw, Schedule E administration, to accommodate new licensing fees for mobile food vendors be included as follows. Food truck, $300 for 1 year ending December 31st, or $75 per day. Refreshment truck class A, $200 for 1 year ending December 31st, $50 per day. Refreshment truck class B, $125 1 year ending December 31st, $25 per day. Councillor Roman?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. I'll just put the word amendment here. Okay, so now the adjournment of committee of the whole and returning back into council.
Moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that committee of the whole is hereby adjourned and the council meeting be called back to order. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
And that carries.
Okay, and next I have the motion to approve adoption of the resolutions. Do you want to read it in its entirety, Ms. Sage, or no, just do the highlights for us?
So moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie, that council adopt the recommendations as adopted and presented by committee of the whole dated February 7th, 2022. Number one, report number FIN-06-2022, the 2022 budget, capital and operating, and that's as presented. And item report number CLK-04-2022, suspend the rules of the procedural bylaw to amend the February 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting start time, and that's as presented. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland, sorry, Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
Carries.
thank you. And next we have the bylaws, first and second reading.
So moved by Councillor Oster and seconded by Councillor McCreary, that the following bylaws be taken as read a first and second time. Bylaw number 3302-2022, being a bylaw to adopt the 2022 budget. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
thank you. And now we have third reading of the bylaw.
Moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Rowland, that the following bylaws be taken as read a third time and be finally passed. Bylaw number 3302-22, being a bylaw to adopt the 2022 budget. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Oster?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes,
That carries.
Ms. Sages, okay. We are now preparing to move into close. CEO McNeely, if you have problems with your internet, you can shut your camera off. Maybe that will help. We hate to use you because you're the main speaker. Okay, so can I have the motion to go into close, please?
Moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor Gillespie. That council move into a closed meeting session at 6:49 p.m. Under the Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, D, I, and K, to discuss 1, report number CAO-03-2022, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive positions or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection I, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection K, and 2, report number CAO-04-2022, labor relations or employee negotiations. Municipal Act, Section 239, subsection 2, subsection D. Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Rossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
And Mayor Foxton?
Yes.
That carries.
Cynthia, can you make